This week on the Orange Box podcast, we talk about the new PS5 Pro leaks, a Destiny mobile game being potentially announced soon, Concord getting delisted just 2 weeks after release, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to that beautiful bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 48. I'm your host, the man who got so burnt out on Dark Souls he decided not to ignite the final bonfire, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man who was paid by Sony to not come to Xbox, Justin, better known as I Am Zericon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
Not bad. I was hopefully looking forward to not doing something this past weekend, especially since I had Labor Day off as well, but it always seemed like I had something to do each day, so I didn't necessarily have as much time off as I would have liked, but I still got some rest in. I was finally able to put out my video, which was partially delayed because I just felt really lazy and just kept doing some gaming instead, which of course I'll get into later. But eventually I said, you know what, I'm gonna go back to work. I should really finish up this video. So spent Labor Day evening finally putting that together and getting that out. So yeah, that was pretty good. I'm satisfied. I realized that there were a couple points that I left out, but I think overall I was satisfied with the end product though. But other than that though, it was pretty much uneventful. Had dinner with my mom on Labor Day. Initially, we thought maybe we would be doing something out, maybe something with my sister, but we didn't end up doing anything. So it was just two of us doing something together. But yeah, that was pretty much it.
That's good. Yeah, I didn't even see, of course, as usual, your video didn't come up in my feed at all, so I need to go look that up because I definitely want to check that out. I figured you'd probably at least were bringing it up soon since one of the games you played this week was Batman, and you said that's what you were going to be talking about, so I'll have to look that up. As far as my week goes, my week has been good in some ways and less good in others. Not like bad, just more like annoying. So, let me think here. I mean, of course, like with you, I had a long weekend. Had Labor Day off. But my wife had been sick last week, and she was sick enough on Thursday to where she needed me to stay home because she was just out. Basically, she just spent the whole day napping. So, I was home, kind of managing the kids, getting them to help out a bit, doing some of the chores that my wife normally does. And, then went into the office on Friday because she was feeling better enough for me to go in. And Saturday evening, I started to feel sick. Which is, annoying because one of the things that we typically do is, if one of us is sick, we don't kiss during that time because it's that way we can just avoid spreading the sickness. And so it's we didn't kiss for a few days because of that. And then I started to get sick. And then Sunday I was feeling pretty bad. I mean, not terrible, but I had a runny nose and a sore throat. And it was just kind of not feeling great. I was well enough that I could go to church, and realistically it was just too short notice for me to have someone fill in for me with my responsibilities there, if I wasn't doing music. But then I ended up just staying home Sunday evening from a family group because that's what we normally have it is Sunday evening. And I was able to use that opportunity to get the first part of my next comparison recorded, which is for Persona 4 Golden. Of course, the thing is that because of how much my nose was running, I was having to stop it constantly. I'd have to pause it so I could blow my nose, or I'd have to I'm gonna have to cut out a bunch, but for the most part, I like would pause it whenever I was at those points, and I just go to the hit the PlayStation button to go to the home menu every time, and then I could just get right back into it when I was ready to continue. But then Monday, I was sick. I was like really sick that day. It was like my wife's Thursday, so it was just, I was achy. I was really worn out. I was just miserable that day. I did game pretty much the whole day. But man, I was feeling so out of it the whole time. And like, I got through everything and that I was working on, and yeah, but it was just like, it was pretty terrible. But then when I woke up on Tuesday, even though I didn't get as much sleep as I would have liked, I was feeling way better. Not like 100%, like probably more like 85%, give or take. And then today when I woke up, I was feeling fantastic. I'd say now I'm at like 95%. So pretty much almost completely recovered. So yeah, doing a lot better. And I've gotten a lot of gaming in. So it's been really, really nice. And of course, we'll get into that. But what have you been playing this past week?
All right, so I went. I obviously I was playing some Batman Arkham City for my video, and I really did not remember how close I was to the end of the game, because initially when I started back into the game, because it had been a long while since I played it, I was in the section where you're playing as Catwoman, that short section right before you like jump back, save Batman, and then the game continues on. So went through that part, and also one thing I will say is that I completely forgot the controls for the game, and part of it is because I hadn't played in a long time. The other reason is the fact that I was partially accustomed to Arkham Knight's layout, so some of the buttons and controls are different. So for certain things, I had been pressing like the D-pad to try to like go into detective mode, but instead It just pulls up your different gadgets, and so I messed that up. And I kept also pressing L1 instead of L2 to try using the quick gadgets. So that kind of messed things up there as well. Eventually, I got into the flow of things and progressed, and so I'm pretty much right near the end of the game, because I already did like Protocol 10 already began and stuff. Went through that, confronted Hugo Strange. So yeah, now it's just like the right before the end where you actually go up and meet the Joker and all that. So that's where I'm at with that. But man, honestly, I was really just gonna play like for probably about like 15-20 minutes of the game, just because I was like, I need some gameplay footage. But then eventually I was like, yeah, I'm having enough fun that I'm just gonna keep playing. But that was good. Gundam Breakers 4 released last week, and I pre-ordered the Ultimate Edition. Like it was on a pretty good sale on I think it was either Green Man Gaming or Fanatical. It was one of those two. But I forgot that it had released, but then about a day or so later, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. I had a pre-order. Let me get the game set up. So initially, the game said it wasn't certain if it would run on the Steam Deck. I went to SteamDB or ProtonDB to see if people were getting it to run on Linux in general. People said it worked fine, and so it should work on the Steam Deck. So I downloaded it to my Steam Deck. I pulled it up, and sure enough, the game did work. So it does run well. On high settings at pretty much 60 FPS. There might be a few dips here and there, but it's pretty consistent overall. It's very overwhelming because of the customization issues, not issues, but customization features that the game has. Because you can build your own Gundam with like all these different parts, and like from the head to the arms to the legs to the torso to the jetpack to your swords, your shields, your blasters. Like it's so much customization goes into it, and so many different stats and whatnot. So it definitely is overwhelming. The fact that I also have a whole lot of stuff unlocked because I got the Ultimate Edition. So it's like
Hmm.
I really don't know too much what's going on. So I pretty much was just trying to see what looked cosmetically the most appealing. I mean, I got some couple drops here and there that looked pretty good. Like the stat gave good stat boosts. Like there's one arm which completely does not match my entire build, but it has good stats, so I just equipped it anyway. But yeah, I think so far it's pretty fun. The story is not what I was expecting. I mean, granted, I haven't played any of the previous Gundam Breakers games, but this one seems kind of like if you had ever watched Gundam Build Fighters, which pretty much was like taking the whole Gundam models, but then like making an actual show based around it. So it's kind of like that, and it's like really meta because it's like, oh yeah, you got all these different Gunplans, like that's an actual thing in real life that people can build and whatnot. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't really care about the story too much. I'm really not interested in it, but I think that the actual gameplay though is pretty fun, and so I'm having fun with that. So there's that. I went back and I played some more Vampire Survivors because after going through everything I went through in Halls of Torment, I should go back and do the same thing and finish the rest of the achievements for that. So I've been going through that right now, and I'm also very upset about myself for mentioning Halls of Torment and saying that was done, because later this month, Halls of Torment 1.0 finally releases, and there are going to be at least 230 more achievements that come for that game.
That's insane.
Oh, the pain never ends.
At that point, I would just say, screw it. I'm not doing this anymore.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's gonna be something. But I'm gonna try and see if I can at least do Vampire Survivors, because there are only about 10 achievements now from the latest update. So I think it'll take me a while, because you actually have to complete the sort of story missions. So once I clear those out, I should be able to get those last achievements and again get 100% until whatever next update gives more achievements. But at least I'll be caught up at that point. So that's why I've been doing that. But mostly I've been playing some more Kingdom Hearts Rechain of Memories. Now, I haven't gotten too far into the game, partially because, well, actually I will add a small addition to that. In addition to Kingdom Hearts Rechain of Memories, I was playing, well, not really playing, but watching Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days, because there are cards in Rechain of Memories that you can unlock, but only if you watch the full movie and look at all the journal entries in 358. Okay. So I went ahead and did that, and then I went back and I was able to unlock the new cards or at least some of the new cards, because each floor in the castle has its own set of cards or abilities that you can get once you get the special rewards enabled. So I went through that. I had to grind a whole lot to get the card that you need to unlock those certain rooms. So it took me a while to do that, but I did get that out of the way. Now, I am a bit upset though, because I knew that Larxene was going to be the next boss I was going to be facing, and initially I thought, I'm just gonna go, see what happens here, and should and then once I have a good feel on things, then I'll set up a recording. She mopped the floor with me. No, the first time I fought her, I almost actually beat her, but then she wiped me out. I had to keep reloading my deck, and that left me vulnerable.
Gotcha.
So then I said, no, I'm gonna modify my deck some more, and then I'll face her. I didn't even get her down to 2 bars before she obliterated me, and that sort of like kept going on, and then I realized I need to raise the values of all my cards, so that way I actually have a better chance at beating her. And I kept doing that, and I actually did some more grinding and stuff to like also increase the limit of my deck. And then unfortunately I forgot to save, and I thought I was going to go into a different room to find a treasure chest or something like that. I realized that I was actually leaving that floor to face the boss, And unfortunately, I had been doing a bunch of grinding right before that point, and I had found some certain rare cards, and I was like, if I die here, I'm gonna lose all that progress, because I also don't want to use continue because I'm trying to go through that for the achievement that,
Right.
where you and so I was just hoping that what I had set up was going to work, and it was I almost lost, but I did manage to beat her. But I was so upset though
Good.
because I wanted to record me fighting her,
Of course.
and that didn't happen.
Of course.
So yeah, that's what's happened there. I am actually I finished the gameplay's from Atlantica, but I finished Atlantica. That was pretty straightforward. The next boss fight I do know is supposed to be Riku, but I stopped because I said I know what's gonna happen, and this time I actually went to record the fight, so I'm gonna record the fight and then face him then. But hopefully he's not too bad. I know that the first few fights shouldn't be bad, but this is also Proud mode, and I don't know how much that differs from the regular modes, but we'll see.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's everything I've been playing actually.
Yes, I definitely understand those recording woes too well, as I was explaining last week. I'll get into my stuff in a little bit, but first I have a couple things about stuff that you've been talking about. So, of course, Batman Arkham City. Man, that's an amazing game. I mean, seriously, it is such an incredible game. It is easily my favorite of the trilogy. I mean, like, Night is extremely good. Asylum is extremely good. I mean, like Night, I understand the complaints about it, particularly in terms of the tank stuff, like completely valid complaints. Although I will say, using gyro to aim the tank makes a massive difference, because the last time I played Arkham Knight, I was playing with the Switch Pro controller, and this was on PC, of course. And so I used the gyro functionality for aiming the tank cannon, and man, it makes a huge difference. But anyway, Arkham City, such an amazing game, and like I want to replay those games someday. I don't have a good excuse, and it's not just that I don't have a good excuse, it's also just that I have so many other games to play that it's really hard to bring myself to stay motivated to actually replay those games, because I would want to play all four. I mean, I'd almost even be tempted to replay Arkham Origins Blackgate, but that one's less of one that I would want to play, because it's such a different style of gameplay. And yeah, but anyway. Now, as far as what I've been playing, first of all, just as honorable mentions anyway, I did play a little bit of Pentiment. I played for like maybe 10 minutes. Main thing was that I tried playing it after I did the main game I was playing, and it was while I was still really sick, and so it's just like, this game has a ton of reading, and while yes, I could understand what was going on, it just wasn't grabbing me. Like, it's just like, I'm not mentally here to be able to do a game where I'm just doing a bunch of reading. So, but the other honorable mention, I did get my physical copy of Outer Wilds for the Switch.
Nice.
I literally just played like 5 minutes today. I just put it in the Switch just to check it out briefly. I have to remind myself of where the initial stuff is, because at some point I am going to do a comparison with this. It may even be the thing I do after Persona 4 Golden, because it'll be a much shorter amount of gameplay that I have to record. But I kind of what I'm kind of thinking I'll do is I'll initially record just like the normal introduction up until the first time that the time loop ends. Which, if I remember correctly, when you're playing initially, the time loop doesn't start until after you do certain things. But then after that, the time loop is there every single time. So the idea is initially I would do up until the first time loop ends, and then I would do a recording that would say, okay, this next section is going to be 100% spoilers. Do not watch this if you have not played the game. And it would be showing how to get all the way to the end, the actual end of the game, on your first run before the time loop starts. So it's a way to get an achievement associated with that on the PC version, because as far as I can tell, there's no achievements on the Switch version. And also just because it's cool when you know how to do it. Because it's not overly complicated. It's just that without key information that you get in the game, you have to know what to do in order to be able to do it in that 22-minute cycle. So anyway, so of course I don't have anything really recorded for either of those. It's possible I'll add in like the few minutes of recording I did for Pentiment, but it's not enough to where it's even worth recording. I do want to note though briefly with Pentiment. When I was the little tiny bit that I played before I before I had that really sick day, it was really grabbing me. The story, the stuff that they were talking about, because it's actually set in a real like 16th century England. There's one point when, and this is just like very beginning of the game, before it gets into any real major story, but where there's discussion going on between your character and this guy that you meet, who's like a noble or something. And they bring up like the recent Martin Luther nailing the 95 Theses to the church in Wittenberg. And it's like, interesting. And that grabbed my attention a bit more, being a Christian and all that. And the fact that it's a key part of my faith is, the Reformation. But anyway, so that being said, as far as the stuff that I've really been playing. So first of all, as I briefly mentioned before, I did play some Persona 4 Golden. I recorded all of the gameplay for both the Vita and Switch versions. I did Vita on Sunday, and then I did Switch on Tuesday. So I tried to mess around a bit with the camera settings to try to get more consistent lighting. It didn't quite come out perfect. So that the picture is going to be a little bit inconsistent, because it's just like I don't know anything about the camera settings. And of course, recording it at different times of day messes with stuff too. So it's just, it's kind of weird from that standpoint. But I can, in fact, confirm the Switch version does definitely run at 60 frames per second, without question. Because I played it on Vita on Sunday, and when I played it on Vita, it's like, well, I knew it was 30 frames per second. I could tell, as I'm playing. It's not a game where it matters, because it's turn-based. I mean, there's basically no real action apart from attacking shadows when you run into them in a dungeon. And that is, you're literally, it's just whether or not you hit them, and it's not difficult to do at 30 frames. But anyway, so when I played it on Switch yesterday, I was like, oh yes, this is definitely 60, especially as I'm in battle. It's noticeable. And of course, I also had motion blur turned off on the Switch version, because you can do that. One thing that is odd with the Switch version that, as far as I can tell, doesn't... I don't remember it being the case on the PC version, and I'm positive it's not on the Vita version, is that for some reason it was like putting up dialogue boxes for background noises, like just an early on section when the main character's guardian, who's his uncle, drives off, and it just like puts basically like hard of hearing subtitles essentially saying, car starts, whatever. And it's just like, there's no way to shut that off, as far as I can tell. I looked through the menus, I couldn't find any way to shut that off. That's the only occasion where I've seen it come up. But yeah, it was just bizarre that was in there. And I guess it's possible it's in the Vita version, and I just never noticed it because I wasn't paying that close of attention. But I played the game 4 times on Vita, all the way through, and I never noticed that before. So anyway, that being said, of course, the game I played the most, and I'm gonna try not to talk about it quite as much this week. But oh yeah, I do want to briefly mention, of course, Lego Star Wars, Lego Harry Potter, continuing those with the boys. But I did start playing. I mean, I did go back to Dark Souls Remastered. I beat Ornstein and Smough. Depending on how long I talk about this, which probably won't be very long, I'll just mess around with the clips that I include for the final video version of this. But I did, of course, get the full victory recorded, the full fight, beginning to end, and I did stick to the strategy of killing Smough first, so that I could get Super Ornstein, so that I could get his armor and weapon and his ring, which I use the armor a bit, but I haven't. That's really the only thing I use, because the spear is just not. I think my stats weren't quite right for it. I think they might be now, but they weren't quite right for it for me to be able to actually make use of that. And of course, also it's just not strong enough, and I like having my big beefy Zweihander. So, but yeah, I did beat them. I just went in full hovel. Basically, was very patient in how I approached the fight. I also made sure that I had some plenty of humanity on me, so that when I ran out of Estus flasks, I had another way to heal myself, and that's definitely the way to go about it. But yeah, I was able to beat them. Going in no particular order, I mean, I will just say I completely beat New Game Plus, which includes every single boss in the game. I didn't do them in the same order as last time because I wanted to. I really wanted to get the footage for Artorias and Manus and all that. But also, I figured, well, if I'm really desperate to get that footage, I might as well do that before I fight Sif, so that I could get the special cutscene. So I was able to. I will say I recorded footage for every boss I faced. At least every boss that I hadn't recorded in the new game. And let's see here. I'm just trying to think of the best way to explain this. So I guess going through the list, I'm embarrassed to say that when I faced Pinwheel, I actually lost the first time. And I think it was just that I got hit by a fireball by one of the clones, maybe. And that was why I died the first time. It's like had a sliver of health left, and then I got hit by a fireball and got killed. So that was a little embarrassing, but of course, then I beat it the second time. Did Ceaseless Discharge, which was much easier this time. Fire Sage Demon, beat on my first try this time. I think actually Ceaseless Discharge was also first try. But not really much to say about those. Fire Sage, I just know the patterns well enough to where I was able to avoid more attacks than not. And I think also the fact that I went in with the full hovel set made a big difference, because even though I was moving a lot slower and couldn't dodge, I could also take direct hits a lot more easily. So Centipede Demon, I think that did take a couple tries. Bed of Chaos, I did actually end up dying right at the end phase, which was annoying. But the plus side is that even though I died at the end phase, it still kept me at phase 3. So when I went back in the arena, it just took me back to the beginning of phase 3, no problem. And that, I just went ahead and it took him out. And the only real reason why I even died was just because I was being stupid, because I forgot that I needed to bait its arms to attack before I ran forward to drop on the branch to go up to the middle and attack it. So because of that, I died the first time, and then I just went back in the fight. It took me right back to phase 3, and then I just went and finished the fight. So that was not a problem overall. I think it actually still ended up going a little bit faster because I didn't fire from the wrong spot, fire arrows from the wrong spot like I did the first time in New Game. Let's see here. Fought the crossbreed Priscilla and was able to cut off her tail, which was good because I didn't do that the first time around. I'm pretty sure the next thing I did was I went into the DLC. I mean, I had fought the Hydra a while before that. I don't remember when exactly, but I went to the DLC. Sanctuary Guardian was able to take out first try without any problems. Side note with Sanctuary Guardian, I did not know this until I was very near the end of the game. If you go back to that arena after you defeat the Sanctuary Guardian, or at least after I don't know if it's just after you defeated all the bosses or if it's just after that one boss, but there's 2 Sanctuary Guardians there.
Oh goodness.
They're not. It's not like it doesn't give you the boss fight thing necessarily, but they don't give you as many souls. But yeah.
Wow. I did not know that. I mean, I never went back to that part, but 2. Wow.
Yeah. And I'm not playing the footage here for most of these bosses, partially just because of the fact that I still have the Super Ornstein fight going on right now, and I want to display my victory, which, yeah. But anyway, so Sanctuary Guardian, Artorias. So once again, I do have my full footage recorded. It's kind of funny though. So, I made sure, of course, I exported my videos. I didn't delete anything until I was absolutely certain. Well, actually, I still haven't deleted anything. But I didn't delete anything because I wanted to make absolutely sure I have everything I need before I try deleting anything. And earlier when I was putting clips into Streamlabs, I was looking at the footage and I'm like, I don't think this is the right footage. And sure enough, the end of that footage was me dying. I'm like, this can't be right. Did I somehow delete this? Did I not record it? I thought I recorded it. And then I went back into desktop mode, looked through the video files, and I realized it was just the way it was displayed in the order was different. It displayed the footage for the winning fight earlier than the ones where I lost. So I do have the footage. It wasn't too bad. It was like 2.5 minutes. It took me to get through the fight. But yeah, I stuck to the same strategy. It was definitely harder this time, for sure. It took me still quite a few tries to get through this. But that's just been, in general, the experience with New Game Plus, is that any fight where I had an easier time the first time around was harder this time around. And then any fight where I had a harder time the first time around was easier this time around. All the bosses have, I think at least double HP from what they had the first time. So that's certainly the major difference. I don't know if they hit harder. But yeah. It's funny, actually, the footage I have here, what just showed is that I got down to a sliver of health on Artorias. I had a sliver of health left. And thankfully there was just enough of a break there for me to down 2 Estus flasks before he killed me. So I was able to, beat him. And sure enough, there's the victory. Victory achieved on New Game Plus. But yes, so was able to get through Artorias, got my footage recorded. I'm happy. And then I went into the Calamite fight, and this took me definitely more tries than last time. Big thing is that I was desperately trying to get that stupid tail cut off, and he just makes it really difficult. So it finally, probably, I don't know, a dozen or so tries after I after I tried like a dozen times or so, because really I'm just focused on trying to get the tail cut off. That's like my number one priority. As far as I'm concerned, even if I die, as long as I get the tail cut off, I'm good, because then I can go back in and not have to worry about the tail and just focus on dodging where needed and then attacking where I can, and sure, no problem. But after about a dozen tries, I was finally like, okay, I need to stop focusing on the tail and just try to fight and see what happens. Because it appears that, especially because this is a DLC boss and the achievements are tied to... There's no DLC achievements in Dark Souls Remastered. Then it didn't seem like I needed to cut off his tail in order to get the achievement for getting all unique weapons. So I stopped trying, and sure enough, when I stopped trying, I managed to cut off his tail. And right as I said tail, that's when the tail got cut off in the video. Yeah. And I was, doing pretty well after that. Like, I was going through the fight at a good pace. I wanted to make absolutely sure that I had gotten the footage recorded, because I couldn't remember if I had recorded it properly or not. And so I hit the Steam shortcut I have set on the deck to record footage, and when I hit that the shortcut, the system crashes.
Oh, no.
Reboots on me. So I couldn't actually finish that fight. Thankfully, it did still keep the tail being cut off. Well, in terms of, like, I still had the sword when I came back to the game. And so I just had to try again, and I was able to, sure enough, go ahead and beat him the following attempt. Didn't have to worry about the tail. It would have been funny if I'd cut off his tail again, but of course I wasn't focused on that at all. I was just focused on staying alive and getting him down. Now, going into Manus, Father of the Abyss, or whatever his name is, that one definitely took me a lot more tries this time. Because, the first time it was 2 tries. This time it was probably like 10. And I did, of course, summon Sif for this fight. But, of course, he has a lot more health in New Game Plus, which definitely was the main reason why it was more difficult. But, I just went in. When I ultimately beat him, I tried to be as patient as I could. Excuse me. Try to be as patient as I could, and just made sure to take hits, hit him when I could. He definitely gave a lot more opportunities for healing than some of the other bosses. There's some good gaps. I always found like the best times to hit him were when he would slam down his fist at you, because most of the time it would be stuck there for a little bit, and so you could get 1 or 2 strikes in whenever he did that. Of course, he still got lots of hits on me, but I think there was only like one situation where he got me really low, at least in this, winning attempt. And so I was able to, take him down in due time. I did also, because of the fact that I actually made sure to save the Sunlight Maggot helmet before I went into the fight. I was able to get the silver medallion, or whatever it's called. I guess it's not silver medallion, but it's something that lets you it's an item that you use that lets you reflect dark attacks, and it's like a permanent item. It has like a kind of a brief window that you can use it, and then it has to recharge, I guess, and then you can reuse it again. So when he does like his dark projectiles on you, particularly the ones that come all around you from the sides, if you use that, it will deflect all those projectiles. I don't know. I don't think that they actually hit him, but they deflect so that you don't die. So I made use of that for sure. But yeah, got through that. Let's see here. Now the order of the rest of the bosses, I'm not positive if this is all like exactly the same. A lot of these I kind of just sped through. I wasn't focused on trying to check off every item on every list or anything, or do every little thing in every area. I was just like, all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take the shortest route I can to get to the boss, beat the boss, and move on. So like Four Kings, when I went into that fight, which I have the footage recorded, but I don't have it. I'm not going to play it here, especially since my Manus fight is still going. The Four Kings fight, I just that one took me a lot more tries this time. But I took the shortest route, that shortcut route that I shared with you. That made it a lot easier to get to him. And so then, even though I had to go all the way back from Firelink Shrine, it wasn't quite as painful because I didn't have to deal with so many enemies. It was pretty easy to avoid the vast majority of them. Although I did discover, and this is not recorded or anything, if you try, right after you lower the water level, if you want to skip past all the stuff leading up to that fight, you can actually just very simply, there's like a really quick way, basically from the room where you first lower the water to get directly down to that fight without having to deal with any enemies. Which is fantastic. It's like basically just a drop down. You'll take a small amount of damage dropping down, but it's not much of a drop, and it takes you right in front of the boss fog gate. Unfortunately, at the time that I was in that position, I didn't have the Artorias ring, so I couldn't do that. So I actually had to. So I guess before I did that, I went back and did Seif, which was easy enough, especially because I was way overpowered and had beaten a bunch of other bosses. In fact, I think I was wearing Artorias' full armor set when fighting Seif, just because. But beat Seif, then went back and did the Four Kings. Took a while to get through, but I did get through it. One thing I did discover, and this was just a mistake on my part, is that the snake Koth, or whatever his name is, the great serpent that appears down in the abyss after you defeat the Four Kings, he does not appear there if you place the Lord Vessel before going and fighting the Four Kings. So unfortunately, even though I think I actually got the achievement for discovering that Covenant previously, it must not have synced because I was playing offline, and so it didn't actually, I don't have the achievement for it, and I couldn't get it this run because I had placed the Lord Vessel before I went there, and I didn't realize that I wasn't supposed to. So that was a little bit annoying. But anyway, moving on, I did go into the Seath the Scaleless fight. I was able to cut off the tail this time. I basically just went into the fight. My number one priority was get that stupid tail cut off. Whether I need to get it for the achievement or not, I'm cutting it off. I'm determined. And it took me a bunch of tries, but I was able to get the tail cut off. And then from there, the boss fight was super easy, especially because really, that's the only difficult part of that fight, because you can pretty much walk right up to Seath's belly, and apart from the occasion where it might, swing its arms at you, for the most part, you can just attack at its belly. It does a lot of damage, a lot more damage than it does to the tails, and the boss goes down pretty easily. But yeah, so that was really satisfying to finally be able to do that. Get the Moonlight Greatsword and all of that. And I haven't used it because although I do have enough stats, I believe now, to use it, it's just like, well, it might be my stats are still a little bit too low. I think my intellect is still a little low. I ended up raising intellect and faith both up to 20 in order to specifically in New Game Plus, in order to be able to wield some of the Artorias weapons and stuff, but so far I haven't really liked the way they handle all that much, so I haven't made any actual use of them. But yeah, so Seath took care of that. I fell off the invisible paths more times than I wish to admit. Nowhere near as many times as last time, since I know the direct path to get to the boss, but hey, good. My gameplay of cutting off that tail did get in there. Okay. But yeah, and beat Gwendolyn, beat Gravelord Nito. Actually have the footage for Nito this time, though it's not going to be in the video here. And I didn't do a whole lot of additional grinding beyond that, mostly because of the fact that for one, I discovered that you can't reinforce your Estus Flask beyond +7, at least not in New Game Plus. I don't know if you can do it further in later versions of New Game Plus, like +2 and so on. It's possible you can. I don't know. I don't plan to do +2 or anything, at least not anytime soon. But I did go through I did grind the Black Knights a little bit in the Kiln of the First Flame, since those respawn, so that I could get all of their weapons. So I got the Black Knight Greatsword, and I already had the axe. I'd gotten the halberd in the whatever the dark tomb is, the tomb that's the tomb where you face Nito, Gravelord Nito.
But anyway, Tomb of Giants?
Yes, Tomb of Giants, thank you. Yeah, so I got that there, but I got both the sword and the great sword in the Kiln of the First Flame. I actually ended up getting 2 of each. Mostly just because I ended up actually dying to Gwyn several times. And this is, like I said, the trend that, well, I wouldn't say he was a hard boss per se. The main problem was that I kept missing with my attacks. And so that was the main reason why it took me as long as it did to beat him. It still was nowhere near like top 5 in terms of difficulty. But considering last time, on the base New Game, I beat him on my first try. The fact that it took me 5 or 6 tries to get through, was different. I still have yet to actually hear more than a couple minutes of that song. Mostly because the fact that either I beat him too fast or I die too fast. It was mostly that I beat him too fast the first time, and then fighting him again this time, I think I usually would die within a couple minutes, but yeah, I think I died more times on the way there than I did actually to the boss. And I think one of those times was I just fell off the edge by accident. Another time was that I had summoned Solaire, and then Solaire fell off the edge. And so I couldn't resummon him, so I had to go back to the bonfire so that I could go back and resummon him, because it's like, if I'm going to go into this last fight and I have the option to summon Solaire, I'm going to summon him. Like, I'm ready to be done. And of course I'm sick on top of this, so it's just like, I'm just ready to be done. And knowing that there's a bunch of achievements there's some achievements that I literally can't get on New Game Plus because I had either killed someone earlier that would give me a certain spell, or I had skipped over certain things or skipped over a certain quest that I couldn't go back and do, or in the case of like the Dark Wraith Covenant or whatever it's called for Koth down in the Abyss, I just couldn't get the Covenant anymore because he didn't appear in the Abyss. So And then there's some of the other ones that are like leveling up the what you call it, leveling up a chaos weapon to the maximum that requires demon titanite, and that seems to be in limited supply unless there's one of those titanite demons that respawns somewhere, but I don't think there is. So it's like I don't have enough to fully level this up anyway. So I'd gotten the Chaos Blade from the second Soul of Quelaag I had. Leveled it up, I think, twice, but I didn't have enough Demon Titanite left, so I couldn't do any further. So that's pretty much that for Dark Souls. Enjoyed it a great deal. But between being sick and just like not really wanting to deal with the annoyances of having to of not being able to get some of the achievements, I'm just done with Dark Souls for a while. Like I had originally installed Jedi Fallen Order thinking, okay, I'll play that as soon as I'm done with New Game Plus on Dark Souls. But then I ended up realizing that by the time I was done with it, I wasn't really in the mood to play that kind of game anymore. So from there, I went ahead, I moved on into Kingdom Hearts 3. I was playing that a bit, just mostly on Monday. And I enjoy it. Basically, I'm just like, right now I'm still in the Toy Story world. And it's definitely like, it's fun. But I just wasn't feeling it, I guess. And it's like, the game is legitimately like, it's good, it's fun, but I just wasn't really in the mood for an action game, even though this one is definitely way, way easier than Dark Souls. I just wanted something that was a little slower paced, but not like Dark Souls slow paced. And maybe a little bit less action, but not heavy reading like Pentiment. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I played a bit more Kingdom Hearts, and it was fun what I played. Had some cool like boss fights and stuff, and I like some of the new mechanics they've added for sure. There's like one section where you get to go in a giant toy robot to fight other giant toy robots. And it basically turns into a first-person shooter / action game, so that was kind of fun. But where I ended up spending the bulk of my time yesterday and today is Death Stranding. I'm back to it. Ooh. And I'm hooked. I am so hooked. I am so happy to be playing this game again. It's mostly been on Steam Deck. Just because of convenience factor. Even though the performance definitely at times gets a little bit a little choppy, like especially when there's a lot going on with like boss fights. So there was one boss in particular I was facing that I've talked about the BTs, which are like the main enemy type that you deal with, that the non-human enemy type anyway. And these things, there's like a bunch of sludge going on around. There's like basically like rivers of sludge all around you while they're out. And you have like these big giant monsters sometimes, and the frame rate starts to chug quite a bit, which is, it's like you got that and rain going on at the same time whenever they're around. So it can definitely chug a bit. But yeah. This game is just, man, it's so good. I mean, when you think of typically when someone says a walking simulator, what you think of is a game where literally all you do is walk. But those types of walking simulators, you're just moving the joystick forward. You're not doing anything else. You're not actually actively involved in how you're walking. There's no real physics to it. It's like, you might be jumping occasionally, but you don't have to worry about stumbling and falling. You don't have to worry about, the amount of stuff you're carrying impacting how you move. tipping side to side, having to find different ways to help yourself move more effectively, different ways to carry the load that you're carrying. And then, of course, occasionally, like, other like, bad guys or whatever showing up, things like that. But this game is just like, yeah, you spend a lot of time walking or driving, depending on terrain you're on and everything, like, whether you're dealing with... Because, like, for example, right now I'm at a section where there's a lot of going up into mountains and dealing with, in some cases, deep snow. And when you're walking normally, this, without the aid of certain exoskeletons that you get after you get past a certain point going through the mountains, it's just very slow trudging through the snow. Of course, the mountains are very steep, and so you have to try to figure out ways to get around. You can't drive through it at all, at least not right now. There might eventually, maybe you'll get like a snowmobile, or as we called them in Alaska, snow machine. Maybe that's something that comes later on. I have no idea. But it's just, yeah, this game is incredible. And anybody who's hated on this game, especially the people who have said, oh yeah, this is just a walking simulator, there's no combat, stuff like that, it's like, yeah, that's not true at all. Not true at all. And I love this game. So that's all I got to say about everything. I think my Dark Souls talk was shorter this time. I tried to make it shorter, even if it was just talking faster to make it shorter.
What was that? Was that the last game? Or
yes, that was it.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely glad you got through the Ornstein and Smells fight, and you actually got all the gameplay footage you wanted, minus the one incident you had where your system crashed. I am glad you got all of your footage recorded.
Well, even though the system crashed, but it didn't. I mean, I couldn't finish the fight, but the footage was still recorded.
Oh, okay.
Because otherwise, I would have had to cut off that tail again. But I have the footage of cutting off that tail. So,
yeah, you did also answer my question about, like, so what was the next Souls game you're gonna be? And then you said it was gonna be Jedi Fallen Order, but then you were like, yeah, I think I'm done with that for a while.
right.
So definitely see that. So out of curiosity though, what drew you back into Death Stranding? Was it just because you wanted to get back into it? Did you see something that reminded you of it?
It was basically just, for one, I've wanted to get back to it for a while anyway, but it's also just because it's something that has me as an active participant in terms of, movement, and like it has its own type of action in the way you have to move around, but it's not like a fighting game. It's not a game where it's not fast-paced action. At least not most of the time. I mean, when you're dealing with either the BTs or the human enemies, you are having to deal with some semi-fast pace, but it's not like it's not Dark Souls, and it's not Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts is like you're flying around basically, hitting stuff with a keyblade and speeding around, and it's fantastic, but I just wasn't wanting to do that. And Death Stranding has been something I've been wanting to go back to because I've loved it so much in the past, but I just always was like in between stuff and wanting to play other stuff, and now I think I'm probably going to stick with this one all the way through to the end. The only thing I could see potentially being something that would pull me away would be God of War Ragnarok when that comes out, because that comes out in just over 2 weeks. But really that's going to depend on how motivated I am to start over again, because unless there is another exploit I can find for the current system version of PS4, there's no way I'm going to be able to transfer my save. Or unless Sony actually makes it possible for me to transfer my save, which I'm not giving them that credit. I think they'll probably do for the PS5 version, but probably not PS4. So unless they let me transfer my save, I'm not going to be able to. I'm just going to have to start over. And I think if I'm going to have to start over, I'd rather just wait a little bit because it's kind of daunting to have to start over again. I mean, it was daunting enough with Dark Souls, but Dark Souls, my major motivation was like, my build is garbage. There's nothing I can do to fix it. And I wanted to play. I mean, I had you finally went on sale on Steam cheap enough to where I felt like it was worth buying and starting over. Whereas with God of War Ragnarok, it's like, yeah, I want to play it, but knowing that I have to start completely over and deal with some of those really difficult bosses again, plus the fact that I was far along in the story, makes it kind of difficult to be motivated to stick with it. So, anyway.
One more question I actually had was, and I think you might have mentioned this before, but I just wanted to be certain. Did you ever get that last achievement for Outer Wilds?
No. Oh. I mean, it's something that I will go back and try periodically, but I still don't have it, no.
Okay.
I mean, I still feel like I have the controls down well enough to where I can go in occasionally and just try again. It's just, it's less of an issue of controls, and it's more just having just the right, like, timing and everything else because of how much the environmental stuff affects the way that you take it. And you have to hit the wave at just the right spot, or rather the wave has to hit you at just the right spot. You have to stay just well enough balanced on the raft to keep it from tipping over or from getting stuck behind the base of the wave. So yeah. Anything else?
No, sir.
All right. Well, let's get into the news. So, we have a handful of topics tonight. First of which we want to talk about here is that Banjo-Kazooie, which was of course originally on the Nintendo 64, has been fully decompiled. Now, to clarify what this means, I don't fully understand it. But I will say, basically, my understanding, and feel free to chime in if you know differently than I do, is that essentially they have more or less enough of the source code, like, figured out to where theoretically someone could very easily make a full PC version of the game, like they've done with Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask and Super Mario 64 and stuff like that. But no one has done it yet, and the people who have decompiled it have said, we are not doing a PC version. So, did you have a different understanding of it than that, or?
No, that does, from my understanding, that is pretty much what it is, whereas like they have the game pretty much broken down where they can have the source code and they just need to run everything together and make a binary that's readable for a PC, as you said. So yeah, pretty much that's it.
Okay. Well, what are your thoughts on this?
It's definitely great that I mean, it's so interesting that we have all of these different games, because I feel like now because I mean, it was amazing first hearing about, I'm trying to remember, was it Super Mario 64 or was it Ocarina of Time that was first had a PC release? Because I can't remember which one it was, but I thought it was very interesting that one of those games had a PC release, and then later on another N64 game got a PC release, and then another game got decompiled for a PC release, and now it's just like, seems like maybe every 6 months we're hearing about an N64 game getting decompiled. So I mean, I like this trend. You know, it's definitely interesting that we could possibly have a good portion of the N64 library getting native PC ports. And I mean, also the fact that they're also running a whole lot better. You know, you can also, it's easier if to like add certain features and mods, and like also for the I think the Perfect Dark one, like, you know, the fact that now there's also like online multiplayer, so that, you know, gives a new way to play the game. So I think that's definitely great. I'm hoping that someone is able to come along and put together a way to compile the code, so that way we can actually get those binaries going. I mean, granted, I don't know what it takes to do it. I don't know if it's something like, I don't know if someone could say maybe modify one of the compilers that were made for like Ocarina of Time or Super Mario 64. If someone had just like modified and then just like put the code in for Banjo-Kazooie, and you can make a exe file from that. I don't know. I don't know how all that works, but I mean, like, if someone can do that, maybe we can get something going on soon enough, and then people can go ahead and make their own PC port from that. I mean, that would be great. But yeah, I mean, I think definitely it's great that we've got this going on here. One thing I did think about earlier this evening, and it's kind of a funny thing how years ago, if someone said that they were going to play Super Mario 64 on PC, or like any other game on PC, and they're still like, yeah, I got the game, and you know, I got this exe file here, you would automatically say, no, don't run that file, because that's not we knew that's just a sign of trouble. But nowadays you actually are running an exe file because it's a native PC port. So just interesting change there. But yeah, I think it's definitely a good thing that we've got this going on. And you said something that really reminded me that, I mean, still something that I wish we got, and unfortunately I feel like this is something we'll probably will never get, is the rare replay ported over. Like, that's something that I did once, because there were several rare games that I never got to play, that I would have loved to, like, I was like, I felt like this would have been the one game that Microsoft would have ported over to PC, but they never did, and I feel like that's a real shame, because there are a lot of good games in that collection, and there are some games in there where I'm like one of them, Jet Force Gemini. Like, I liked playing that game on N64, and I mean, I could like emulate it, but I'm like, I would really just like to have a good port of that game, and not have to like worry about setting anything up for that. But it's just unfortunately something that Microsoft never considered, and probably never will at this point. Like, I feel like if they were going to port it over, they would have done it by now, considering how they ported nearly everything else over. Granted, they didn't port over Halo 5, but that's probably not going to come either.
Yeah, but most people don't want Halo 5. Apart from people who are like just desperate for that lore, that horrific stuff that they did with Cortana and all that. I mean, it's not quite as bad as what we get nowadays, but it's still like, man, what a fall from grace that was. So, yep. All right, any other thoughts on that?
No, sir.
Okay. Where was I? Okay, so Black Myth Wukong. As of right now, is only available on PC and PS5. It has not yet come to Xbox. The theory that most people had initially was that the reason it wasn't coming to Xbox yet was because of hardware issues, because of the Series S making it difficult for them to be able to actually get it brought over. And also because basically from previous comments that the developer made, it sounded like, you know, they were having to spend extra time with optimization and everything for this game. But they didn't specifically say what the issue was. Well, apparently, it's actually been recently claimed that the real reason is actually because the fact that sorry, I'm trying to find the specific thing. So Forbes has recently reported that the delay was actually due to Sony striking an undisclosed console exclusivity deal for the game. So, and something I do want to note here that lends credence to that idea, even though, of course, if Forbes, particularly if it's like Jason Schreier, if he's the one who's reporting this, I have good reason to believe that it's legitimate. But they said specifically that the developer Game Science, they said, we prefer not to comment on the deals made by our partners with other platform holders, but we can confirm the delay is not due to Xbox platform limitations that have been raised to us. So, sorry, I should have spent a little more time looking at this. So yeah, they mentioned something about deals made with other platform holders, and then they also mentioned that the delay is not due to hardware issues with Xbox. Your thoughts?
I'm not entirely certain how or what to think about this, because of the fact that I do know that certain games with Xbox have been an issue, and not necessarily due to the fault of the Series S, but I know like the Capcom fighting games, up until recently, they had issues with porting over. I can't remember what the exact issue was, but there was something going on that they couldn't figure out, and then also trying to get in touch with Microsoft to get it fixed. And only recently they were able to actually get that resolved, so now that the games can be ported over to Xbox, but I know there was a problem there. But the one thing that really kind of makes me question whether or not this is a matter of exclusivity is the fact that Sony has always been upfront about if a game is exclusive or not. So it makes me wonder why they didn't say that Black Myth Wukong is exclusive, or at least console exclusive, because they have been doing that with a lot of games. Granted, it would make sense as if like that's the reason why it hasn't come to Xbox by now, at least. So like I do think it could be a possibility. I just don't know. I'm not certain why. I'm just not certain why Microsoft or why PlayStation never stated that it was exclusive, or like there was some sort of deal, because they normally have been upfront about that, like with Final Fantasy, with what's the other game? Oh gosh, all the other Square Enix titles that they have, with Stellar Blade, like they have been upfront and say like, yeah, these games are exclusive to PlayStation. They'll probably come over to another platform later on, but just for right now, it's only on PlayStation. So I'm just wondering why they never stated that it was only for PS5. And of course, it was on PC as well, but I'm just curious about that. I mean, I'm not saying it's not, that it wasn't exclusive, especially considering the fact that Microsoft said we're not at liberty to say like what our competitors do for exclusivity. Which, if it is an exclusive deal, I just really feel like this was such a poor move to gamers, because why would Sony need to make this exclusive? I mean, considering the fact that, I'm not going to say that there aren't gamers on there who wouldn't buy it, but I feel like this is a game that would already sell well on PlayStation 5. Like, Sony doesn't need to feel like they have to cut the legs underneath Microsoft to get sales going for the PS5 version. I mean, I feel like they're like, most gamers probably would buy it on PS5 over Xbox, because I feel like those types of gamers would gravitate to it more on PS5 than on Xbox. So if it is an exclusivity deal, I feel like it wasn't necessarily necessary, but I mean, I could see it happening. I just don't know. I mean, hopefully it will come over soon enough to Xbox. Hopefully, the game, if it is because of a deal, it's not something like they have to wait a full year or something like that. Maybe hopefully by the end of the year, maybe we can get some more news. Hopefully it's maybe even just like first quarter of 2025 it'll come to Xbox. But that's more or less my thoughts on things.
So the only thing that I could think of that would be a reason why Sony wouldn't have called this an exclusive, why they wouldn't have said anything, would be because the fact that the game was originally already confirmed for multiple platforms, and that they maybe made this deal with Game Science after the game was already previously announced as coming to multiple platforms. And so that's the one thing I could think of that could be a potential explanation. The other side of this, and this is probably more of a conspiracy theory than anything else, but is the thought that maybe what Sony did was, well, of course they decided, or they set up this deal after the fact, after this game, long after this game was announced, as coming to multiple platforms. But as part of an NDA that they did when they made the deal, when they paid Game Science to give this temporary exclusivity, they basically just said, hey, you guys cannot tell anyone that we paid you to do this. And there's this period of time that it's going to have to be the case, and that's the only thing I can think of that could potentially be the explanation for that. Now, will we ever find out whether or not that was the case? I don't know. My guess is that if there is such an NDA in place, it's probably would be at least a couple years before they'd be able to say anything about it. But I'm not entirely sure about who it is that actually originally reported this. Oh, it's Paul Tassi. Okay, so I believe Paul Tassi is typically pretty reliable in terms of his sources. I don't trust him necessarily. Well, I should say, I'm not sure if I like him very much, but I would say the same thing about Jason Schreier. I don't like the guy at all. I think that he's a good journalist and does a really good job at his work. I just think as a person, I dislike him. Paul Tassi, kind of similar. But that being said, I don't know if this is actually a real thing or not. I lean more towards the idea that it is a real thing, and that it is, in fact, currently a PlayStation exclusive based on Sony making some kind of paid deal to keep it exclusive for a little while. And more than anything, it's just based on Sony's history. We've seen them do this time and time again, making games exclusive. Now, a situation like this where the game is supposed to be coming over and isn't coming right away, that part I'm not sure about. But unless they did that with Baldur's Gate 3, and that was the real reason why it took as long as it did for it to come over. But I don't know. None of that is clear. That's just speculation on my part. So. Any other thoughts from you?
No, sir.
All right. So, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, Concord, which came out on August 23rd as a PS5 and PC, same date launch, exclusive. It is already shutting down. And by the time this episode goes live, which is on September 6th, 2024, it will be completely shut down. The game is being shut down. It is being refunded. And it's a crazy situation. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to quickly bring up the PlayStation blog from the developers, what specifically they had to say. Oh, the link is missing now. The link is broken.
Oh my goodness.
What happened? Okay, let me go back to the main page and see. Okay, here it is. I don't know. They apparently.
Oh,
I don't know
yeah,
what to
no,
deal with
I
that.
see what you mean now. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
well, I went back to the main PlayStation blog page and it's there. So, okay, so this is the game director for Firewalk Studios, the developer of Concord. And here's what he says. From the PlayStation blog, Concord fans, we've been listening closely to your feedback since the launch of Concord on PlayStation 5 and PC, and want to thank everyone who has joined the journey aboard the North Star. I'm going to move this over. Your support and the passionate community that has grown around the game has meant the world to us. However, while many qualities of the experience resonated with players, we also recognize that other aspects of the game in our initial launch didn't land the way we'd intended. Therefore, at this time, we have decided to take the game offline beginning September 6, 2024, and explore options, including those that will better reach our players. While we determine the best path ahead, Concord sales will cease immediately, and we will begin to offer a full refund for all gamers who have purchased the game for PS5 or PC. If you purchase the game for PS5 from the PlayStation Store or PlayStation Direct, a refund will be issued back to your original payment method. Customers who purchased from other digital storefronts will also be refunded. More information about refunds from Steam and Epic can be found below. Steam will refund players who bought the game over the coming days. They'll send confirmation of the refund once it has been processed. Epic Games will do the same thing. Contact each customer directly to confirm the refund has been processed. For customers who have purchased a physical copy at a retailer location outside of PlayStation directly, please refer to the refund process of the retailer you purchased it from to obtain your refund. Once refunded, players will no longer have access to the game. We'll keep you updated, and thank you again to all the free gunners who have joined us in the Concord Galaxy. And just a final note with this, refunds for PlayStation Store and PlayStation Direct purchases may take 30 to 60 days to appear on your bank statement. So, and if you paid with something that is no longer available, like a card or whatever, the purchase amount will be refunded to your PSN wallet. Your thoughts?
Well, man, that was fast. I mean, I don't even think, not even Jawbreakers. I don't even think that crashed this quickly. I mean, Anthem definitely outlasted this game as far as length goes. I definitely am glad that anyone who bought this game is going to be getting a full refund. I think that's definitely well deserved, considering the fact that this game's getting pulled like 2 weeks after launch. It's definitely glad that people can get their money back, because I would feel very cheated out if I spent money on this only to lose access to the game so quickly. So that's definitely good. But as far as it getting shut down, I can't really say that I have any sympathy or about this, because had it been any other game, I would either be I would be meh about it, or I would be like, man, that's a shame that it happens. But considering the fact that the game was doing quite a bit of a job at pushing a message, and considering the fact that one of the devs even said that people who were against the game were, and I quote, talentless freaks. There's no lost love here for me. You get what you deserve. So I'm not necessarily going to make a parade out of this, but at the same time, though, I'm not going to lose any sleep over this. I might even sleep a little better tonight. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much here that wasn't good. I mean, there are so many. For one thing, there are so many hero shooters out there that, you know, trying to carve out your own niche in that genre is going to be hard enough. But then it's also $40, like $40 for a game where you can play one of these same type of games for free. Like, I think Overwatch 2 is free to play. What's that one? Valorant's free to play.
Mm-hmm.
There's another one that on the tip of my tongue that I can't
CS:GO.
think of.
Well,
Yeah.
no, I guess CS:GO is not a hero shooter, but
Like,
yeah.
Okay, yeah. But like there are definitely other options for people to play. So I don't know why most people would want to pay $40 to play one. I mean, granted, I will definitely give them credit for the fact that there wouldn't be any battle passes, so I do have to give them credit for on that end.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, though, I mean, I think some people, or at least a good portion of people, aren't thinking about that long-term price tag as far as, like, you know, $40 over a long period of time, as opposed to, you know, free to play and then spending money on battle passes and microtransactions throughout the years, and how that builds up and adds up. Kind of like with PC gaming, how, you know, you have that big upfront cost, but then, you know, you don't pay much afterwards over time, as opposed to, like, with a console, you have the cheaper price, but you spend more over time. But people don't think about that type of thing, so that definitely was an issue there. But yeah, I mean, and of course, the somewhat uninspired characters, somewhat questionable characters as well, also didn't help there. So, like, there were so many elements here that set the game up for failure. But it's funny though too, because back in the state of play that we watched months ago, like when you and I were watching it live, and we were like, yeah, that's a thing we're not really interested in. But like, Sony spent a good amount of time showcasing this game during the state of play, only now that it's gone. And the crazy thing is the fact that this game was in development for 8 years, and now it's like gone in a puff in a short period of time. Like, I mean, sure, the game had a period where it was in beta, but, you know, like, even with that, like, people, they should have, like, been thinking about, like, okay, the numbers aren't really doing that great here. What can we do to make the launch actually that much better? And whatever they did wasn't enough, obviously. Although one thing I do wonder is, could they possibly bring the game back as free to play? I mean, they probably won't. They probably just will be like, yeah, this is just gonna be a tax write-off, and we'll call it a day. But do you think they would bring this back as a free-to-play game instead of what it is now?
You know, I've been going back and forth on that a lot, because on the one hand, it would make the most sense for them to do it free to play, because then they could just, you know, go for the... I mean, that seems like that would be an easier way to potentially bring it back and make some money, but I'm not sure they will. I'm actually leaning more towards the idea that they're not going to do it. And the main reason I say that is because this game had such a tiny player base. I mean, the estimate is that it only sold like 25,000 copies, which is embarrassingly low. I mean, it's not even a full price game. Yes, granted, you have Overwatch 2 that's, you know, $40. Or I'm sorry. Overwatch 2 that's free to play. You have a variety of free to play games, and yes, you have that comparison from that standpoint, but of course, you also have battle passes, they have microtransactions, all that. But the problem is that you have you have enough of the injection of the message that they want to put out there. That's certainly an issue for certain people. Some people more than others. I know people who actually, they bought Concord, they actually really enjoyed it. And when I initially looked at it, I was like, it looks like it's reasonably well designed and that it's fun. And it wasn't until later when they started showing off more of the character designs that, okay, I mean, apart from the fact that the initial reveal looked like a lot of discount Guardians of the Galaxy, or we have Guardians of the Galaxy at home, or we have Overwatch and Guardians of the Galaxy at home. It looked like decent to me. It just wasn't appealing to me because I'm just not interested in that type of game. And, you know, like I was talking with some guys over in the Married to the Games Discord. Shout out specifically to Chris McCracken, who's one of the hosts of the show. He's been playing Concord and he's been loving it. And, you know, like I said, I never thought the game necessarily looked like it would be bad in terms of gameplay. It's just not for me. I'm not interested in a hero shooter. I don't like playing those kinds of games that ultimately feel aimless to me. Like there's just no end point. There's no loot to chase or, you know, just anything to motivate me to really play, because it's just a multiplayer shooter and that's all there's to it. That's why I never played Overwatch. It's like Overwatch looked great. It looked like it was probably a lot of fun, but I don't like multiplayer only games. At least not that type of thing. At least with the Destiny, yes, it is multiplayer, but you can also do a ton of stuff single player. And there's you know, like you can just do patrols, you know, walk around different environments. You can kill enemies. I mean, it's like you get to shoot stuff with great powerful guns. You get to build up powers and levels and get better gear and different guns, and it's just like it was a lot of fun. But these hero shooters where you have like a specific set role, specific set loadout, and the most you can do is basically just work on a battle pass, it's not appealing to me. Now Concord, from my understanding, actually has some sort of progression, but it's still not really like, it's not quite what I want out of a game. And on top of that, even if it was something that I was a little more interested in, I have so many games right now that it's just so hard for me to be interested in something like this. So I was already hesitant to buy the game just because of all those reasons. Then of course you add in the messaging, which I'm not a fan of at all. I think that it's one thing when it's like very, very light. Like the pronouns that they had in Starfield. Yes, they were there, but it's literally just, you have two sets of pronouns, and the only time you ever see anything about your pronouns is when you create your character. After that, you never see them again. I don't even think you can find them in your stats menu. Like it's not even there anymore. It was just like a simple pandering thing, and anyway, I'm not going to get into that stuff. That being said, I don't think Concord is going to come back. I think it's just dead. It's just straight up gone. Yes, people have suggested the idea, okay, well, Cyberpunk was pulled from stores for the PlayStation Store after that disastrous launch. But the big difference between Cyberpunk and Concord is the player numbers. Cyberpunk had a massive number of people buying the game, and the people who played on PC where the game was less buggy had a lot more positive things to say. And even some people who played the really buggy versions on console, some people just like they're unwilling to, I mean, I guess maybe to some degree they were coping at how bad the game was. I mean, you know, how poorly, not necessarily poorly designed, but how incomplete the game was and just the issues that it had in general. But then Cyberpunk eventually came back and it ended up doing extremely well. And now everyone says it is a fantastic game. It's still not for me because of certain things in those games that I'm just like, I don't want to even get anywhere near that. And it's not even political messaging. It's just stuff that I'm like, I I can't get myself involved in a game that has that content in it because it's just not healthy for me as a Christian. Plain and simple. But Concord, I think, is a game that it had a terrible launch. Then it had the messaging that a lot of people aren't a fan of. And while I'm definitely someone who would say, don't always judge a book based solely on what the rage bait YouTubers say. Because sometimes they can't look past the few little problems to see what's good underneath it all. There's still just a lot more smoke than not in this case. And regardless of anything else, I think that we're at a point where this game it's just completely dead. It's not coming back. I would be totally fine if I was proven wrong. I would be actually quite happy for people who enjoy the game that to get proven wrong. I just think that the problem is that while the free-to-play model potentially could make the game more successful, the problem is the player numbers were so low, so stinking low, that Sony has to be looking at this and saying, is it worth the additional investment to put the time in for maybe an increase of numbers? Or are we better off just cutting our losses and saying, there's nothing we can do about this. We need to refund everybody, which is what they're doing. And that's just it. We can't do anything more with this game. It's not worth the risk. Putting a bunch of extra money into a game just for it to flop a second time, I just don't think that's going to happen. One thing I do wonder about, and this is just the last thing I have to say, is I'm wondering what's going to happen in terms of the physical retailers. Because while yes, some of them will definitely honor the thing about returns and everything like that, I have a feeling that there's going to be some of them that are going to push back and they're going to say, hey, you bought this, you can't return it, you already opened the package. And then people are just going to be screwed. And there's nothing they can do about it. And furthermore, sorry, one last thing. The fact that this is demonstrating that although we are both champions of physical games, this is a simple example of buying a physical game that you don't actually own in any way, shape, or form. Because in this case, the game is 100% going away. You will not be able to play it anymore. It is exclusively an online game. It's being shut down. It will be offline by the time this podcast goes live. And I think from that standpoint, that really sucks. That's all I have to say about that. I do want to note one quick thing that's a complete side note, but just because I found this out and it actually makes me happy. It doesn't make it perfect, but it's still better. I did find out that the Metal Gear Solid collection on the Switch, even though the main Metal Gear Solid games are not actually included on the cartridge, it doesn't have download codes. So when you put the game cartridge in, it just automatically downloads the games. Okay. So that does make it more worthwhile, at least as long as Konami keeps the games available to download for however long. Eventually, yes, it will definitely be a problem because there will eventually come a point when it will be impossible to download those games, but hopefully Konami will actually make them possible to download long term, and it's actually a way for people to actually get the games. Because I don't mind having digital copies, I just don't like the idea of it being stuck with a code so that you purchase the cartridge, especially if you purchase it sometime later, like what happened with the Devil May Cry collection, and then you cannot download the game because the codes no longer work. They actually expired. Anyway, I'm done. That's all I have to say about Concord.
I actually have one more question to ask you, which is, what do you think this situation is going to do for Sony as far as their perspective on multiplayer games? Do you think this is going to have an impact on them moving forward, especially, I mean, granted, they did have, say, they had games like live service games, multiplayer games planned, and they reduced those games. They cut the number of those games like in half practically. Do you think that's going to impact the remaining half games that they have in the pipeline, or do you think like things might not be altered too much?
That's a good question. Like, I don't know. It's so hard to say because the big thing is that they killed off games earlier that probably would have been really successful. Like Last of Us Factions. That would have been successful. Now, it may not have been Destiny levels of success, but it still would have been way more successful than Concord. They shut that down. They shut down that Spider-Man multiplayer project, which probably also would have been very, very successful. Even if not necessarily long-term successful, it still would have been successful. I have no doubt about that. They shut down two projects that probably would have made them a good amount of money, even if it wasn't Destiny money, in favor of Concord. Now, granted, they did do Helldivers 2. They did keep that going, and that ended up being a really good gamble because it did extremely well. I think that there are some issues with the game now, but I think this is one of those games that's probably going to have lots of ups and downs. But overall, it's still done really well. I mean, it's sold very well, and overall, I mean, people have had tons of positive things to say about it. I still want to play that game. I just haven't. Haven't bought it. So, but yeah, that is a good question. I mean, my personal theory is that more likely than not, this is not going to have a dramatic impact, but honestly, I think it just depends on what games they're putting out. I think that there's a rumor that there's like a Horizon multiplayer game. I think that's something that they'll probably stick with because they've been pushing the Horizon franchise. The girl boss Aloy, as insufferable as she can be, she's still nowhere near as bad as Mary Jane. And at least in terms of the gameplay for her games, gameplay is solid. Just Aloy's a bland and uninteresting character. But yeah, I think the Horizon multiplayer thing is probably still going to happen. It'll probably do really well. I mean, there will be, of course, plenty of detractors, plenty of haters. The rage bait YouTubers are certainly going to have a field day with it. Which, some of what they have to say is valid and some of it's not. But beyond that, it's hard to say, mostly just because we don't know what else is coming. Now, I think when we see what other things Sony has coming, we'll have a better idea of what is more likely to be successful versus dead on arrival. I don't think any other game is going to be as dead on arrival as Concord has been. Even Foam Stars, I don't think was as dead on arrival as Concord. And Foam Stars at least is going free to play.
Yeah.
So, which we didn't talk about, but I mean, it's just basically like it's Foam Stars. It is what it is. I mean, anybody who looked at that was just like, this is a knockoff Splatoon and it doesn't look all that good. Other than, fanboys that were praising it because it was a PlayStation exclusive, and that was the only reason they were praising it. But yeah, that's what I have. My thoughts.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much it from me. But I just wanted to get your opinion on that because I was wondering about that.
All right. Sounds good. We want to talk about this PS5 Pro design leaks thing.
Yeah. Okay. So there is a alleged leak from a gaming news source called Billy Bill Kun, which I think for some reason I'm getting it mixed up with the Chinese media site Bilibili, but oh, I'm sorry, it's not even Billy. It's Bill Kun. Recently shared more details about the upcoming console, which is the PS5 Pro. And in this report, there were certain details about it. about like a lot of the designs and the announcement window. So the report states, I'm just reading this here, is that the PS5 Pro design will feature the same white color for the outer panels as the previous models, so that would be the PS5 and the PS5 Slim. On the front of the console, players will find 2 USB-C ports and a power button. Additionally, there will be 3 black stripes across both side panels instead of the Slim's 1 stripe. Lastly, the PS5 Pro model is a bit bulkier than the Slim models. And then, moreover, according to the images Bill Kun has received, the PS5 Pro doesn't seem to have a disk drive. However, this needs to be confirmed. Regarding the controller, the Pro model will still feature the standard DualSense controller in the box. And lastly, the report states that the PS5 Pro will be announced very soon and could be announced as early as the first half of September 2024. And that is pretty much the gist of things. And of course, there's like, of course, viewers not going to see this, but there's like an image of what the PS5 Pro allegedly looks like. So before I share my thoughts, you can go ahead and take the floor.
All right. Well, I'd say this is definitely a real thing. This is the real design for the PlayStation 5 Pro. It's something that it looks very much in line with what they've done before in terms of the design of the PS5 itself, and then the PS5 Slim models that they've done more recently. And just based on their history, like, this seems like a very accurate type of iteration that they would do. I think that it's very likely that it's going to be, it's going to have the option of that detachable disk drive the same way that the Slim model does, where you can basically just, like, you take off the panel and then you can click it in. So it ends up being kind of a dual purpose thing. For people who already bought the Slim model, already bought the disk drive, they can just take that disk drive and attach it on. Although I could also see Sony doing a separate disk drive that's only compatible with the PS5 Pro, and that the old one would not work. So if people already bought the PS5, the PS5 Slim, and then they buy the PS5 Pro, they would have to buy yet another disk drive after paying what is theorized to be potentially $700 for this console. In terms of what they've said as far as the specs go, one of the things is that it's supposed to be like 35 to 40% better in terms of its performance improvements. So like going up to a slightly higher graphics card, essentially. Even though it's not actually using a graphics card, but it's, the APU situation, the system on a chip, and it's but it will be a 35 to 40% performance boost, which is good, but for $700, I know some people are really excited about this. There's one of the guys that I talk to regularly in the Discord. He's like super, very much wants this PS5 Pro. He was talking about Black Myth Wukong and that the performance mode is not great on the base PS5. The graphics mode is not great either. And of course, this is an Unreal Engine 5 issue above all else, not just a console power issue. Because if this was Unreal 4, these problems would not be the same. But yeah, it's... I'm definitely, obviously, of the opinion that at this point, you really should just consider getting into PC gaming, but I understand, especially people who are diehard PlayStation fans, or just even somewhat PlayStation fans, not even necessarily getting into the fanboy territory. They want to stick with PlayStation because they like the PlayStation exclusives, and even if those exclusives aren't exclusive for long term and eventually are day and date with PC or whatever, and even if they're only temporary exclusives, whatever the case is, they want to stick with it because it's simple. Even though it does technically end up costing them more in the long run than just going with PC, they have their reasons, and I'm not going to rag on them because I know and respect plenty of people who have this perspective. That's fine. The fanboys, of course, are a whole different story, but I'll leave the roasting of the fanboys to better men, or at least men who are better at roasting than I am. So this is something that I'm looking forward to seeing what they have to show. I know I'm still definitely not getting one. Not a chance. It's like I got convinced a while ago that I'm not getting a PlayStation 5 because, well, I should say I'm not going to buy one. There is the only way I could see myself ever potentially purchasing one is if it was like dirt cheap, or if someone, even then though, really, someone would just have to give it to me. That's the only way I could get a PlayStation 5, because there's no reason to get one for me. I have a PC that's easily more powerful than the PS5 and the upcoming PS5 Pro. It does everything that I want. I purchased, the last time I made the real upgrade, which was my graphics card, 5 years ago. It's still more powerful than what they're going to be putting out. And it will probably still be good for a while. It'll probably potentially even be better than the PlayStation 6, but like by the time the PlayStation 6 comes out, I may have already made an upgrade to my PC. And none of the exclusives are completely exclusive anymore. Like temporarily they might be, but I have a hard time coming up with any good reason, like any game that I'm like, I have to play this day one. Even if they did something like they did a new Infamous, or they did a remake of the Infamous trilogy, which honestly, I think if they did a remake, they would probably release it day and date on PC because it's a remake, and they're already doing that with Until Dawn. But even that wouldn't convince me. I have so many games, and I have no problem waiting the extra time. Like, even with God of War Ragnarok, I never ended up finishing it because ultimately I just didn't like playing on the PS4 at 30 frames per second. And I played a lot of that game too, because I really enjoyed God of War 2018. And what I played of Ragnarok, which I only even got because of the fact that I got PlayStation gift cards for my birthday, and it was like, might as well buy it. It's like, I'm not spending my money out of my own pocket. I'm just using a gift card. Like, I really enjoyed it. I think it's fantastic. And regardless of what the rage bait YouTubers have said about it, like, I know Sweet Baby had some involvement, and certainly making a Nordic character black didn't make a whole lot of sense, but at the same time, it's like, it didn't have any impact on the story at all. It's just like, okay, you have a young black woman in place of, well, like, really like a black teenage girl in place of what would probably be a white teenage girl. It's like, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. It's like, whatever. The game's still good. The game's fun. Same gameplay that I wanted, some improvements over 2018. Anyway, I'm ranting about that. But I think this, to TLDR this all, TLDL this all, PS5 Pro, I believe these leaks are legitimate. I believe we're probably going to see it soon. I'm hoping that it's soon, and I'm not buying one. So, that's it.
Yeah, I definitely agree that this definitely does seem credible. At the very least, it's very believable. There's already been a lot of speculation about the PS5 Pro coming out sometime during this later part of the year, and if there is a state of play that is announced within the first half of this month, then it very is likely that it will show up there. Going back to, because you actually did touch upon something I wanted to address, which is the fact that it could have, or you could have an attachable disk drive similar to the PS5 Slim. One thing I thought about is the fact that they said that this model, that the PS5 Pro, is a little bit bulkier than the Slim models. So I was wondering if, because it's a little bit bulkier, which you sort of mentioned, would that mean that the current disk drive attachment not be compatible with the PS5 Pro, like because of the size. Like I don't know how this would necessarily attach. Like in fact, I can't even remember how the PS5 Slim drive attaches to the.
You remove the side panel, and then you just put on a different panel along with the disk drive. Like the disk drive basically kind of clicks in, or like clips in basically, and then you put the alternate shell, which I don't know if that alternate shell comes with the disk drive, or if it's something that's included by default, or how all that works. I don't know that part.
Okay. But yeah, I'm still just curious though if because it's bulkier, if it will be compatible or not. Because as you said, it would suck if someone bought the PS5 Slim, or even worse, if they bought the original PS5, bought the PS5 Slim and the attachments, then bought a PS5 Pro and the attachment, had to buy another attachment.
Yeah,
that would be, oh my goodness, that is a lot.
That's some Nintendo garbage. Nintendo level garbage. That's what happened to me with the Switch. Now, granted, I don't regret buying the Switch at launch. I loved the Switch at launch. I have zero regrets on that front. And I have slight regrets on getting the V2, but only because of the fact that if I had waited another year, I could have gotten the OLED right then, and then not have to have bought 3 total Switches. I mean, granted, I was able to sell the V2, not nearly as much as I would have gotten for it otherwise, but I was selling it to family, so it's like I was perfectly fine with that. But yeah, just like, yeah. Of course, I'm also the guy who bought the base 3DS, which I did buy used, so I got a good deal on it, but I still got it early enough to be an ambassador. Then bought the XL because I wanted the bigger 3DS. Then bought the new 3DS XL because I wanted to be able to play Xenoblade Chronicles 3D. So I'm that guy who did that, and not that I ultimately have any regrets because it worked out just fine. But it's like, yeah, that was nowhere near as high of an investment as with the PlayStation, with the PS5.
Yeah, most definitely. But I mean, I do hope. I mean, I definitely do hope that they make it at least compatible, because I mean, I even also hope, because it wasn't confirmed, but I don't know. I almost feel like I wouldn't necessarily completely put it past them to just have it be completely digital with no attachment at all, because I mean,
yeah,
the leak did not say that there would be any sort of compatibility with any sort of attachment. So
yeah,
it just says like pretty much all digital. So hopefully there definitely is an option at least, because if someone had bought a previous version and wanted to play the games they already had,
right,
they would be out of luck essentially, because there's no disk drive to put the games in. So we'll definitely see more, and the month has only begun, so we probably might hear something within the next week or so about a state of play. So we'll definitely have to see.
Would be really interesting is if we had same day PS5 Pro revealed and Switch 2. I don't think that's going to happen, but it would be interesting if that did.
Yeah.
Because I'm not really sure. Well, I think, the Switch 2 would probably get more buzz, but honestly, it could kind of go either way. Because, I mean, well, PS5 Pro is more of an enthusiast device. Switch 2 is the new generation for the Switch. So I think that would probably get more buzz. And if their marketing is anywhere near as on point as it was with the Switch, I mean, that marketing was fire.
Yes.
For the Switch. It was absolutely as close to perfection as you can get. at least in terms of, I mean, from earthly standards, not from the actual biblical standard, because obviously it's not that. But, you know, it was just like, you had the Wii U, which had just horrendous marketing. Even as someone who was a fanboy of the Wii U and everything, was like, yeah, the marketing was bad. I mean, the fact that they had like this 2.5 minute video, I don't know, 2 or 3 years into the Wii U life cycle, which of course, you know, was a very short life cycle. They had this video that was explaining what the Wii U was, but it was 2.5 minutes long to explain this. Trying to give that to someone in order to help them understand what the Wii U was, it's like, you really have to do that long of a video? I mean, it'd be one thing if it was like, okay, this is a deep dive into what the Wii U, everything the Wii U can do. But the problem is that they did such a poor job with the initial messaging that so many people didn't even know that it was a new console. And yes, us enthusiasts, fanboys, as we were, we knew what it was. We were excited about it. And, you know, we would preach from, you know, stand on our soapbox and preach the good news of the Wii U to the masses. But, you know, the average person had no idea what it was. Whereas with the Switch, you had within the first, like, 10 to 20 seconds, I guess it was probably more like 30 to 40 seconds, of that initial reveal where you knew exactly what you were looking at. And then they just showed more situations, all the different ways that this could be used. And they didn't have to have some talking heads. They just had a really catchy song playing and all these great examples of all the ways you could use this, that it's a portable, that you can dock it, that you can detach the Joy-Cons, that you can do multiplayer. They showed Skyrim and a Mario game and Mario Kart, even if it was just an updated version of the Wii U game. And then, you know, all these third-party games that hadn't been on Nintendo in a while, like NBA 2K and yeah. Anyway.
And also Zelda too. I mean, that was...
Oh, well, yeah, obviously. Yeah, Zelda. Yeah. I mean, we had seen Zelda before, of course, but even still, it was like, you know, you got all these great examples. I mean, like, this was amazing marketing. And you had the Wii U that had horrendous marketing. And that was only really defended by those of us, like myself, who were just diehard fanboys that just couldn't admit to ourselves that it was bad. No matter how good the system itself was, you know, as a precursor to the Switch, which was much better, it was still terrible marketing. And yeah, anyway, this is going off of the PS5 Pro topic. I'm like PS5 Pro, like, it's very clear. The name, it says it on its own, what it is. They're not going to have any trouble marketing this. I still don't, I think it's going to be, you know, about the same as with the PS4 Pro, where it sells, but it's not like selling to the same extent as the base PS5 or even the PS5 Slim, which I don't know if they've finished getting to a point of actually having the Slim model completely replace the original model. I know that that's their intention, is to eventually phase it out. Like every, you know, manufacturer does, they eventually phase them out. So. But yeah, that's all I have.
Same here.
All right, sounds good. Let's see here. I think we had... Oh, yes. All right, we do have one final topic tonight, and I'm just going to kind of talk about this briefly because right now it's more... it's a rumor that I think, based on the source, I believe it's probably true, but we just have to see what happens. So, there is supposedly a mobile game called Destiny Rising, which would be specifically, it's this project that NetEase has been working on for a long time in collaboration with Bungie. And Jeff Grubb is the primary source for this, and he said that this is something that is supposed to be that unlike many of the other projects that Bungie has done, this one has not been canceled, and it's going to be like a Destiny mobile game. I mean, it's going to be Destiny on mobile, but with a lot of changes, he said. The developers will include hero characters instead of allowing players to build their own characters. As for what this actually looks like, that definitely leaves me curious. But I will get into my thoughts a bit more as a Destiny guy after you have a chance to talk.
Yeah, so I'm a bit perplexed about why this is a thing. I mean, granted, I feel like there is a market out there for this, but it just seems kind of odd to take a game like Destiny, which is what it is, and then just try to, I guess, for a lack of better words, water it down to a mobile experience. Now, granted,
yeah,
the mobile market, as far as what's capable of, has gotten better, even to the point where certain AAA games actually have been ported. Granted, I don't know. I feel like part of it is the games are streamed. Like I think like Resident Evil 7 got a port for mobile. But I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember if it's just 7. It might be 8.
Okay.
But it's not streamed.
Oh, it's not streamed.
Okay, yeah. I think the iPhone 15 Pro Max does both Resident Evil, either 7 or 8, probably 8, and Death Stranding Director's Cut are 2 examples of games that are on there.
Okay. So then, yeah, it definitely has gotten a whole lot better from what I remember as far as like what mobile gaming was like. But at the same time, I feel like I don't know. I just it just doesn't seem like it's the right demographic that you're targeting who would actually possibly care that much. But then also, I think the biggest thing is, why change the core, or I mean, grant's not the complete core, but why change the style of having a customizable character so that whom you can change your gameplay, change your style, and loadouts and stuff on to like how you want to tailor it. Why change that to a hero shooter-esque type of game like that? I mean, it's not a hero shooter like Overwatch or anything like that, but just like the characters, like
right.
That just seems weird to me. I mean, sure, you could say it's because it's a sort of spin-off game. It's a mobile game. You know, it doesn't need to be the same version as the official one, but like I feel like even considering what it was, like Diablo Immortal still, at least, you know, the core mechanics were the same as the standard Diablo.
Right.
Doing something like this just seems really weird to do, especially considering the fact that, again, as stated, mobile gaming has come a long way from what it once was. So like, I feel like you shouldn't have to make this change if you don't necessarily have to. So I'm very confused as to why that is happening in the first place. I don't see it as a good thing or something that will do well, but granted, this is just from someone who hasn't played Destiny before. So I mean, maybe someone like you would be like, yeah, that's fine, it's no big deal. But that's just how it looks like on my end.
All right. Well, to kind of summarize my thoughts here, I think this is going to do well if it's real. Which, you know, Jeff Grubb typically has a good track record of being correct on things. I think that the appeal would be similar to the kind of appeal with Diablo Immortal, where it's not something where I mean, for one, it's about having people who, I mean, it's expanding the audience, making a game that is ultimately simpler than the base game. And I think that realistically, they can't do something as complicated as the main game, because while like it's really well optimized on PC and even consoles now, you got 60 frames per second, which is great, even if you know it took significantly longer than it did on the PC side. I understand what they're trying to do. Now, if they made it a straight up hero shooter, I would just be like, this is trash. I have zero interest in it. The idea of having just set characters with certain loadouts and that sort of thing, that does, like, it's not the best thing, but as something that I wouldn't be spending any money on, I'm willing to check it out, assuming it's a real thing, mostly just because I'm curious. You know, like, is this even a decent, like, just kind of filling that void, you know, giving me a chance to play a little bit here and there, because right now, really the only real way for me to play Destiny is on my PC. I mean, yes, I could technically run it on my Steam Deck by doing it from Windows with a micro SD card, which I've done in the past. But it's not the best performance, and it's just like, it was obviously a much significantly lesser experience than what I had on, than what I have on my desktop. So this is one of those things where I just need to see it. I need to see something and then try it out. And I don't think that there's any chance that I'll be playing it as a long-term thing. Even it would probably be something that, like, I'll play it a little bit when it initially drops, and then I'll fall off hard and just maybe boot it up once in a great while, just to kind of be like, oh, I feel like shooting stuff, you know. If Bungie has enough involvement to make the shooting actually feel good, because Bungie, that's one thing Bungie's amazing at, is making the shooting feel good. But I have a feeling it's going to be very similar to Diablo Immortal, where, like, I played really heavily when it first dropped, and I've dabbled with it occasionally, like once in a great while, but almost every time I've tried dabbling with it, I have to basically re-download all the assets, which is really annoying. And then I'm just like, because it's such a big gap between the times that I play, and it's like I'm waiting for the assets to re-download, and then I either don't jump back in, or I play for a little bit, and I'm like, and I mean, like, it's still reasonably fun, and, you know, like, I have that mobile controller, the attachable controller for my phone that works great. I love this thing. Even before, when I was just using a clip for my Xbox controller, attaching it to my phone, you know, that worked great too. But yeah, I don't know. I just need to see something with this. I'm very curious. Destiny in and of itself, I obviously haven't played much at all in a while. I still need to finish the campaign for the latest expansion. I'm probably not going to play anything beyond that, because even though I love the game, like, I really truly love Destiny, I just don't have time for it. And I feel like I've definitely got my money's worth over the years, even though I've spent more than I know, or more than I want to think about. I spent definitely more money on microtransactions over the past 9 years. I mean, I don't think I've spent anything on microtransactions this year, but in previous years, I definitely spent more on microtransactions than I care to admit. And it was really just buying the in-game currency so I could get, like, skins or get emotes or things like that. But it was also a game I played a lot. I mean, it's my most played game of all time, without question. I have, like, over 2,000 hours, I believe, in just the Steam version. Okay, no, I'm wrong. Steam version, I have just under 1,200 hours. But I mean, that's a lot of time. and mine like pales in comparison to some people I know. One of the guys, the last guy I interviewed for Dads and Gaming, Ryan, I don't know how many hours he actually has, but Destiny's almost the only game he plays, so. And he's been playing since at least 2014, maybe even the beta. So, I know that he puts my hours to shame. And shout out to Ryan. I love you, man. Yeah, but I don't know. I'll still at least check out this mobile game whenever it comes out, assuming it's free to play, which I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be. Just to see if it's even decent, something that would be fun to play once in a while. But that's about all I have to say about that. All right, you got anything else, or do you want to cover anything else tonight?
I think I'm good.
All right, so as we close out tonight, recommendations and dissuasions. Start us off.
All right, so actually, before I get to my main recommendation, I do actually want to have a couple amendments to my recommendation / dissuasion from last week. And so
Okay.
My first amendments, as it were ratifying our recommendation. So I said before to make sure you have cards that were valued 6 or higher. But once I got to the Larxene boss fight, I realized that is not good enough. So I would definitely say by the time you reach Larxene, your cards should have a value of 7 and up, no less than 7. Otherwise, it's not going to be good. Now, after that boss fight, you probably can have a little more leniency, especially when you're actually in the worlds, and the enemies, for the most part, aren't going to have as high of a values as you. I mean, there are a couple enemy types here and there that will have like 7 value cards, and like maybe even 8 or 9 value cards here and there, but those are very rare. But I still think that you should be aiming for 7 and up. So definitely make sure you do that. And again, of course, as I mentioned before, have 0 value cards sprinkled throughout there so you can break cards that the bosses use here and there. So like definitely have that. My other amendment, this was a dissuasion I had, which was to not use slights. I'm going to amend that by saying, if you're in a hard boss fight and you need to break your the boss's cards, go ahead and make a slight, because if it means a matter of life and death, go ahead and waste that one card, because if it carries you through the fight and you live, then like by all means do it, because that's actually what I had to do in addition to everything else I was trying, just to make sure that I would not get wiped out. So yeah, definitely go ahead and use a slight, or at least stock up all your cards and make a combo, just to make sure you survive. So definitely do that if you have to. But other than that, though, I would definitely say don't use slights. But my main recommendation, though, is Arkham City. Play it. It is a great game. I mean, granted, I would recommend the entire trilogy, and I'll even toss in Arkham Origins. But Arkham City is a great game, and it is available pretty much everywhere. So go ahead and play it. It's a great game, and you will not be disappointed.
Excellent. All right. Well, I have a couple of recommendations. The first of which is a movie that came out 20 years ago, which is crazy to me that it's been that long. But it is a reimagining / remake of a movie that originally came out back in the 60s, I believe is based on a book called The Manchurian Candidate. And the one that I am specifically recommending is the 2004 version with Denzel Washington. It is a really great suspense kind of thriller movie, and It's very much it's like a political suspense thriller, but it's got some interesting parallels to modern day politics. And this isn't saying, oh, like I think that, oh, this is what's actually happening in modern day. No, I don't think that at all. But just it's super interesting, and it's just a super well made movie. And I have watched the original version of the movie. It didn't grab me as much, but this one it's incredible. It's so good. So definitely check that out. Manchurian Candidate, 2004, Denzel Washington. Watch it. My other recommendation is, if you are going to attempt to get all achievements in a game, like you find that you're just really enjoying a game, whether you're going into New Game Plus or whatever, or you just like that, you know that you're going to love a game before you jump in. Make sure that you look at the achievement list ahead of time, specifically find out anything that's missable, and see what you need to do in order to prevent missing that. Because while some games, yes, you're going to have to do a New Game Plus run in order to get all the achievements, some games you can get by doing it in a single playthrough, and then others you can avoid having to do multiple new games in order to get all those achievements. In this specific case, I'm talking about Dark Souls Remastered, because there are some achievements that I missed because of the fact that I had either killed someone in order to get a certain spell, which locked me out of a quest that I didn't realize would give me other spells later on if I had done it, or in some cases it's just a matter of not having the right build or making a decision in the game that locks me out of getting another achievement, and that can be really annoying. Similarly, like Persona 4 Golden, I ended up having to play through that 4 times in order to get all the trophies in it. And the first time I was playing through the game, I had no intention of going for the platinum. But then, like right after I finished it, and this is one of the only games where I've actually wanted to do New Game Plus immediately after finishing the game, Dark Souls Remastered being the other one. I did New Game Plus, and I decided partway into the game that I wanted to go for the platinum. And there was enough achievements or enough trophies that I basically locked myself out of doing because of the fact that I hadn't gotten time-sensitive things that you can only get at certain points in the game. So I missed out on that. And then my third playthrough, I was going for it. And while I wasn't necessarily missing out on some of those things, because of the timing of when you have to do the timing of having to get like all the social links, for example, or like you have to, there's one point where you have to try and get the person who's guiding your character like in battle that, you know, gives you commentary, tells you about enemy weaknesses and whatnot. You have to get 250 unique lines from them, which is entirely random. But if you play the game at a lower difficulty, you get fewer of those lines. So I was playing at a lower difficulty because I was like, you know, I can just breeze through this game. I've already beaten it legitimately, no problem. But I missed out on getting those additional lines, which even then it's not a guarantee because of that. And so then I ended up eventually, I mean, so I did 2 playthroughs back to back. The third playthrough I did 2-3 years later. And when I finally did my 4th playthrough, I was able to get all the remaining trophies and get my platinum. But even though I love the game, should never have to play through game 4 times to get all of that stuff. Of course, then you have games like Metal Gear Solid 4 that the requirements for getting the platinum are just insane and not even worth it. So, yeah, that's what I got for recommendations. What's your dissuasions?
My dissuasion is going to be a bit of the opposites of my recommendation, and that is, do not play the Batman Arkham Collection on the Switch. Unfortunately, I wish I could recommend it, but from what I've heard, it was a horrible port, which is a shame because
Mm,
the Arkham games should have been able to have been great ports. There's
yeah.
no reason why it shouldn't have been able to, why it has the issues that it did, but unfortunately, not a lot of care was put into the port, so people have said that it's just something you should skip. So for that reason, I would say the Switch is the only place, sadly, where you shouldn't play it, even though it is available now.
Yeah. All right. Well, my dissuasion relates back to what I was talking about earlier. So, when it comes to a video game that you are interested in, that you look at it, you're like, okay, this looks like a game I want to play. Though this goes beyond games, don't always trust what the haters have to say, because there are certainly times where they have valid points, but a lot of times, especially these rage bait YouTubers, they will fixate on certain points. They won't play the game, which, that's fine. That's their right. They don't have to play the game. And they will completely ignore what otherwise they might actually end up really loving as a game. And that's fine. Different people, they have different things that bother them. But my dissuasion here is don't always trust what the haters say, but at the same time, don't completely ignore them. Because sometimes they do have valid criticisms, and the best thing for you to do is look at what their points are on both sides, especially people who've actually played the games. Because sometimes something that one person doesn't like may be something that you love. Like, I remember the criticisms on Mirror's Edge Catalyst. The biggest criticism when I read the review on IGN, when I was still reading IGN, is the stopping for collectibles and that sort of thing, which isn't required. It's just an optional thing, but I love that. I love collectibles. I get that little dopamine hit every time I get a collectible, and it's just like, I loved that, and I ended up absolutely loving that game. So, yeah. Anyway, that's what I got. All right. So before we completely close out for the night, where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel, I am Xeracon, that is IAMXERACON, so youtube.com/@ I am Xeracon. Put out a video for the first time in a long while, which was just discussion on Batman and some thoughts that people have lately had about him as a character and whatnot, and so my response to that. My next video I intend on doing should be an unboxing video of the Gundam Breakers for Collector's Edition. That came in actually last week, but I wanted to get the Batman video out since that was something I should have been put out a long while ago. So that should come out hopefully around this weekend. It shouldn't take a long time to record and whatnot, so we'll see, but it'll definitely be the next video that comes out.
Okay, sounds good. Looking forward to it. I'm going to try to speed through my stuff as quickly as possible because it's late. So you can find me, of course, on YouTube at TheFrozenGamer87. I haven't been putting anything out for a while because I've just been taking an extended break, but I am currently working on putting together the Persona 4 Golden comparison between the Vita, the Switch, and the Steam Deck, all the OLED versions. And I'm hoping to have that out in the next couple of weeks. And right now, like, my Borderlands 3 has just completely blown up, the Borderlands 3 comparison. Considering how poorly Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel did, I'm just shocked at how much this has gotten. Last I checked, it was at 36,000, almost 400 views. So that's massive for my channel. Not that it's turned any subscribers. And I ended up having to, I disputed the copyright claim on the Borderlands theme because it's fair use. It is. It absolutely is. But usually they just ignore the disputes. Like, they just ignore them and then it passes and it's all gone. But probably because of how many views this video has gotten, they rejected my dispute, so I ended up having to just mute that section. So I'm like, you know what? This video has gotten way too many views for them to be able to claim royalties off of this just because it has a song that is fair use. But I don't feel like disputing it. I don't want to get a strike on my channel. It's not worth it. So, stubbornness aside, I went ahead and just muted that section of the video. But anyway, so yeah, I have plenty more comparisons planned in the future. Persona 5 Royal, Persona 5 Strikers, Outer Wilds, among multiple other games that I'm just not going to mention right at this moment. Additionally, I have my YouTube cooking channel, which is Not Authentic But Delicious. I also have been taking a break from putting stuff out on there, but I have like 5 recipes in the wings right now. Basically all recorded, just some of them I need to add voiceover. There's like 2 of them I need to add voiceover to, and then the rest of them I'd have to actually edit everything, put it together. I just finished recording the last portion for the Japanese curry breakfast burrito tonight, so that's going to be a yummy one. That might even be the next one that goes up. But I'm hoping to probably have that out in the next couple of weeks as well. And I may be doing that before I have the Persona comparison, just because the Persona comparison is going to be a lot more work. So anyway, that being said, then of course we have the YouTube channel for our podcast, the Orange Box Podcast here. And that is youtube.com/@theorangeboxpod. Oh, I need to go back real quick. The Not Authentic But Delicious, if I didn't already say it, it's at NABD Cooking. So then going back to the podcast, on YouTube, it's at the Orange Box Podcast. And there every Friday, 7 a.m. Central Time, we have the video version of the podcast where not only can you see our beautiful faces, but you can also check out clips of games we've been playing, as we usually include those, as well as any additional clips for games that we've seen through like trailers, reveals, that sort of thing, Nintendo Directs, PlayStation showcases, Xbox showcases, all that kind of stuff, and so on and so forth. But if you are interested, of course, you can check it out there. Otherwise, we are on we have an audio-only version that is available on all major podcast platforms. Google Music, or not Google Music, it is YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, probably some other platforms I'm forgetting. But basically, any major podcast platform, you can find our podcast. That goes up every Friday at 12 a.m. Central Time. Of course, you can contact us. You can contact us through email at theorangeboxpodcast@gmail.com. You can contact us on Twitter at theorangeboxpod, or you can just comment on the videos. You can say whatever you like about us. You can say bad things about us. You can tell us to Persona 3 ourselves if you so desire. But the fact of the matter is whether you comment or not, whether you contact us or not with questions, comments, etc., we're just going to keep talking for 2.5 hours every week, because this is how we catch up. This is how we get a chance to talk about video games, talk about what's going on in the video games industry, and it's just a good time. So that's all I got. Any final thoughts?
No, sir.
All right. Well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I Am Zeracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast, and until next time, as of this Saturday the 7th, happy birthday to my lovely wife. Orange Box Podcast, out.